What if I told you that a king once starved to death while lying on a bed of gold and diamonds? This isn't a fairy tale. This is a story about the deadliest trap of human nature: greed. In a distant kingdom lived a ruler consumed by an insatiable hunger for wealth. King Aldrich wasn't born greedy, but power has a way of corrupting even the purest hearts. Year after year, he squeezed taxes from his people, seized lands from nobles, and hoarded tribute from neighboring kingdoms. His palace vaults overflowed, yet his appetite for more only grew stronger. Paranoia crept into his mind like poison. He couldn't sleep, haunted by visions of thieves scaling his walls or his own ministers plotting against him. "They all want my treasure," he whispered to himself in the dark corners of his castle. The weight of suspicion drove him to make a fateful decision. He would hide his greatest fortune where no soul could find it. Deep in the forbidden forest, beyond the reach of civilization, the king commissioned a secret underground chamber. The construction took months, and every worker who built it mysteriously vanished afterward. Only 2 keys existed to this vault of unimaginable riches. One hung around the king's neck, the other belonged to his most trusted advisor, Minister Casper, a man who had served the crown for decades. The chamber became the king's obsession. Mountains of gold coins created glittering landscapes, while precious stones formed rainbow waterfalls under torchlight. Ancient artifacts from conquered lands lined the walls like trophies of his greed. This wasn't just wealth, this was power made tangible. On that cursed autumn morning, King Aldrich felt an irresistible urge to visit his treasure alone. He slipped away from the palace before dawn, his heart racing with anticipation. The forest was silent except for his footsteps crunching on fallen leaves. When he finally reached the hidden entrance and turned his key, the sight that greeted him was breathtaking. "My beautiful children," he whispered to the jewels, running his fingers through cascades of gold coins. "My precious, precious wealth." Time seemed to stop as he lost himself in the intoxicating presence of his fortune. Meanwhile, Minister Casper had been conducting his routine patrol of the kingdom's borders when his path led him through that very section of forest. Something caught his eye. The chamber door stood slightly ajar. His blood ran cold. Had bandits discovered their secret? Had he forgotten to lock it during his last inspection? Without a second thought, he rushed to secure the entrance, his hands trembling as he turned the massive lock. "Thank God I arrived in time," he muttered, never imagining the horror he had just unleashed. Inside the chamber, the king remained blissfully unaware of his fate, counting his treasures like a child with toys. It wasn't until hours later, when hunger began gnawing at his stomach, that he decided to leave. But when he pushed against the door, it wouldn't budge. The realization hit him like a thunderbolt. He was trapped. His screams echoed off the stone walls, but the forest swallowed every sound. He threw himself against the door until his shoulders bled, but the ancient wood and iron held firm. As hours turned to days, desperation consumed him. He pressed his face to the cold gems and pleaded, "My precious diamonds, give me water, my golden coins, feed me." But wealth, he discovered, was deaf to human suffering. Thirst cracked his lips. Hunger hollowed his cheeks. The very treasures he had worshipped now seemed to mock him with their silent, glittering presence. In his final moments of clarity, as life ebbed from his body, the king understood the cruel irony of his fate. With his last strength, he found a sharp stone and pricked his finger. Using his own blood as ink, he scrawled his final revelation on the chamber wall. "A mountain of gold cannot buy a single drop of water. A treasury of jewels cannot purchase 1 grain of rice. I die the richest and poorest man in the world." Days later, Minister Caspar returned to check the chamber. The sight that greeted him would haunt him forever. His king's corpse lay among the treasures, partially consumed by creatures of the earth, while his blood-written testament glowed crimson in the torchlight. The minister sealed the chamber forever, but the king's message lived on. It reminds us that true wealth isn't counted in gold or measured in possessions. It's found in the relationships we nurture, the kindness we show, and the legacy of compassion we leave behind. After all, when our final hour comes, we can't take a single coin with us, but the love we've given and received follows us into eternity.